Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to another video. And welcome to a video I've been planning for a while, because there seems to be one craze that every single manufacturer of anything is now currently throwing at you, because it's clearly what you want: RGB lighting. Now RGB lighting is not really anything new, but it's become such a craze recently because it's become so cheap to manufacture and implement in all the things you normally buy. And so getting a cool looking desk or a cool looking computer is now easier than ever. But does that mean that it's actually worth buying into? Well, to get started, RGB lighting is actually very simple. It's just the act of having three separate light emitting diodes in one LED package. So when you look at it, it sort of looks like a single light, but then upon closer inspection, you'll see that every single LED package has a green, a red and a blue portion. And then these combine together to make pretty much any color you like. So if you want red, well, they just have the red LED on. If you want green, the green, but if you want something more complex like purple, like I've got with some of the lighting in this room, then you just mix the colors together and it makes your desired color. Now this does have a few side effects, as having a white color will be brighter than any other color because you've got all three LEDs on, versus if you go for red, then it will be 1/3 of the brightness, at least in theory, of having all of the light emitting diodes on at the same time. But then if you do want to go for a white color, then quite often you get a lot of separation, where you can clearly see that it's three separate LEDs making this white color, versus things like white LEDs on keyboards where it's just a white LED and you don't have to worry about separation. But implementing it is fairly simple. In a lot of components it's pre-done for you, so things like graphics cards and motherboards, they actually have LED lighting built into them now that come in RGB color schemes, so you can customize the RGB scheme in software or in some cases on hardware to actually pick a color you like. Whereas there are other ways of implementing it, such as buying LED light bulbs or LED strips that again come with RGB lighting that can then be customized to any color you like, again normally in software, or in the case of the LED light bulbs you're going to do this with a smartphone app. So getting hold of some stuff is very simple, and I've been testing so much RGB over the last couple of years. Now, peripherals is pretty much the main area it started to kick off, and if you look at a company like Corsair, you can see that they are really going for the full RGB craze. Companies like Logitech, Razer, Corsair, they're all throwing out all these different things, and they've almost certainly got some form of RGB lighting in them where applicable. So most recently I've been testing the Corsair K95 Platinum, and this has RGB literally written all over it. You've got a LED bar at the top that can be customized to any color you like. Every single key has RGB lighting underneath it, and then you can synchronize this with a load of other peripherals as well. So if you go for all Corsair peripherals like I've got on my desk here, then you can get a RGB mouse mat, an RGB mouse and a keyboard, link them all up together with Corsair's Q software, and then you can create some crazy LED effects that not only provide static colors, but they can be customized to do some really cool things. Corsair and companies like Razer are pretty much leading the way, but every single peripheral manufacturer is definitely catching up. So if you are interested in RGB peripherals, you have a lot of choice at the moment. Implementing it in a system you already have, though, is fairly simple, and this is one of the most effective ways of getting color into your home. And I do this with a combination of LED strips, and these are the sort of cheap, normally Chinese ones that you just buy on Amazon. They cost me around about £15. They come with a remote that I've actually got here, and while it's not as complex as using an app, you simply press the button and it will change color to any color you like, really. So it's very simple to implement, and you can just put this anywhere you've got a power socket and then get some cool RGB lighting. If you do want to go down the light bulb route, and this is definitely the best way of creating color schemes throughout your room, then you can get things like Philips Hue, you've got Lifx, which is what I use, but then you've also got Hive in the UK have released some colored light bulbs, and again you can go for cheaper non-brand ones, but to be honest I actually quite like the robustness and the ease of use that comes with these Lifx bulbs. They're very bright, but they are definitely very expensive, at around about £60 here in the UK per bulb. So it's very expensive, but it's a great way of adding colour to your home. So those are the main two ways of adding RGB lighting into your room, your desk and your existing setup. But you can also customize your PC itself if you're one of these PC modifiers or PC builders. And it's very simple to do. You can just grab some RGB lighting strips and then insert them into your system. You will need either a RGB header on your motherboard or some form of adapter. So the Phanteks ones that they sent out that I've got here, they utilize a controller that you can customize yourself, or for a more complex array of patterns or lighting, then you hook this up to a compatible motherboard. So here I've got the MSI M7, and then you plug it in and then you can create some really cool RGB lighting effects that then go from your motherboard to any compatible hardware you have, including those RGB strips. So you can create some pretty cool color schemes and some pretty cool crazy effects. I go for the more tasteful ones, but it is entirely up to you. And then finally, we've now even got RGB fans as well. So if you want to add RGB fans into your system, then that's also very simple to do. So the three Corsair SP120s I've got here, they use a inbuilt controller, which is a little bit of, I wouldn't say nightmare, but it is annoying that you have to take the side panel off to choose the lighting or change the lighting. But you're probably not going to do that often anyway, but if you are a tweaker, then do bear this in mind. But I was using this with the Corsair 460X, and it's remarkably easy to create some pretty cool effects, depending on how you're feeling really. So those are the main bits of RGB lighting I've tested over the last few months, but are they actually worth buying? Well, I think it entirely depends on what it is, because at the lower end of the scale we've got the Corsair Void RGB, a headset that actually is fairly good value, but it's got RGB lighting listed as one of its features, one of its main selling features, and it's just so pointless because as soon as you put it on your head, you can't see them. And if you take it off, if you buy the wireless one especially, then it's going to drain the battery. So it's completely pointless, and why anyone would look at this headset and go, you know what, I want that, I'm not really sure. And if that is you, I beg you to sort of look at the list of features other than RGB, you know, like comfort, sound quality, battery life, range, things like that are a lot more important than RGB lighting. But then at the other end of the scale, we've got things like the Philips Hue and the Lifx systems that are selling really well, and they enable things that just weren't possible a few years ago, and you can create a different vibe in your house. I've got really used to now just having a different color come on every single day in one of my lamps with a different color, and it really does add to the room. But if you want to add something to your existing PC setup, well, if your PC is on your desk, then it probably is worth tidying it up and adding some RGB lighting. Some RGB strips are the cheapest way to go and the way I would recommend. We've got different manufacturers of motherboards and graphics cards trying to say, hey look, we've got these different components with RGB lighting. Realistically, it's not that much of a big deal in my opinion. Yes, it can look very, very good, and if you have your computer on a pedestal, then sure, it may well look very good. But to most people, I'd recommend just get an RGB lighting strip, or even those RGB fans if you don't want to be adding LED strips to your system. And then finally, peripherals. This is for the people that want their desk to look great. I'm not convinced that an RGB mouse mat is worth it in my opinion, because it's a large amount of money for something with some RGBs in it. But things like keyboards these days, they do look very, very good. They're getting a lot better. The original Corsair K70 I used, the RGB lighting was a little bit weak, but these days we've got a lot better, and if it does interest you, then it does look very good. But personally, I would stick with just putting some LED strips around my desk, maybe getting one of these smart bulbs, adding a bit of colour to my room, and then saving the money on the peripherals themselves, getting ones with just standard LEDs that are only one colour, and personally that's what I would do. But it is entirely down to personal choice. All of my stuff these days is pretty much RGB, and while I don't go for the crazy effects, I definitely think it can look very good, and because it's purely an aesthetic thing, it's entirely down to you. So let me know, is RGB something that you are interested in? Is it something that's gone too far? Is it something you're willing to invest a lot of money in? Do let me know, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Subscribe for more videos just like this. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you haven't. And a massive thank you to Corsair for sponsoring the channel as always, as well as Phanteks for supplying the RGB strips used throughout this video. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.